Yeah.
How do you structure your team for the kind of work that you do?
Like we're small enough that we don't have to be super hierarchical. It's like 12 people right now in the company, which is really not enough to do what what we're doing. But again, I like prefer to undercorrect on number of people than overcorrect, because there's this feedback loop where you hire more people and that means you need even more people, and it's harder to stay alive, and like all these things start happening. So on the programming side, I'm just sort of leading the programming, but also we hire people uh, who are self-guided for the most part and who don't require micromanagement, in part because I want to actually still be doing design work and programming work and all this stuff, right? I don't want to be in a lot of meetings all the time talking to people about what they should be doing. And so that's actually a little bit bad, because sometimes I end up not knowing about certain things that are happening and then I get upset that they happened. But for the most part, this has been successful in preventing us from straying from the nuance of the things that we're trying to make. Well, one of the other programmers has been in charge of designing the graphics engine for the new game, and I like vaguely talk to him about that once in a while, but for the most part I just trust him to do it, right? And he's working with a couple other people on that. On the art side, we have an art team leader who, like, again, I talk to her once in a while, and we sort of maintain this mental picture of what exactly we're trying to do and how we're going to go about it. But I don't even know that much of the details of process about like what you do in a 3D modeling tool. So there's a certain level of separation that I have from that process. And we just go forward like that. But there's not, in a larger company, you have very explicit levels of management at like multiple hierarchies and stuff. And I think if we were larger, I think that's better than trying to do the flat thing. No successful army in the history of the world was ever flat. And you have to like wonder about that, right?
Totally. I think flat can work better or worse. Like, so for example, I've read a lot about the organization of pirate ships recently. They had a captain and they had a quartermaster who had more power, but like they were democratically elected. And if they ever did something that they didn't like, the pirate crew could maroon them and put someone else in place. And they would do that frequently. But when they were in battle, there was an exception. If they were in battle, then suddenly the captain became absolutely in charge. What he told you to do, you must do no matter what, because you had to operate on very short timelines where there wasn't time for disagreement. You just have to move, because otherwise you're all going to die or go to prison or get hanged. And so I think like it's also interesting to think about like what are the different moments where different types of structure might work better for some problems and worse for other types of problems.
Well, I mean, I'm sure. So the picture that I have in my head of a pirate ship, there's probably just like a lot of muttered alliances and decision making, like behind, like things could probably get very political between individuals very fast. Like there's one or two companies in the games industry that famously are kind of flat, and they're actually not. They do actually have ultimate leadership in the sense that you're talking about that can't be marooned, which is interesting. But also, like, the idea behind being flat is like, if you have a better idea about how to do this particular project, you can like compete with that internal to the company and do your better thing, and then the better thing comes up, right? Or you can decide what to do. And in reality, though, like you need people to be on the same page. Like there needs to be consensus in order to make things happen at scale that require coordination between people. And if you have somebody that just says, look, this is what you're doing, right? You might grumble and disagree, but you at least know what everybody's doing, right? And like if that's not in place top down, then what you end up having is a lot of people politicking with each other. Like there's this way in which you think, oh, we're going to be flat so that we avoid this thing where you're politicking with the manager and you're trying to be like the manager's pet and get all the good raises and stuff. But from what I've heard of people who have worked in these kinds of companies, it actually just makes the politicking way worse, because now you have to politic with everybody instead of one person, right? It is just this n squared number of political connections.